everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Candy.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Z Garcia.
Today we're taking a look at a follow-up game to a very popular game called Scythe, called Expeditions, or 1920 Expeditions, like 1976 Fallout or whatever.
Yeah, why not?
It's a sequel to Scythe. So it comes in a gigantic box, which I'm sorry to tell you, is slightly misleading.
It is a very big box.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah.
Well, actually, the board takes up a lot of space on the table. So there's that. I mean, it has these big giant tiles, and there's big mechs, but it has an insert that holds everything. But when you take that insert out, and it fits in maybe
There's
this
not
much of the
that
box.
many
Right.
components.
So, whatever. Let's take a look at how it plays, and we'll be right back. This is the main board of the game. You always start with this at the bottom, and then you'll place tiles. These are all going to be face up on the bottom, and then these are going to be placed here, and players are going to go out and explore and discover them. And when you land on top of them, you will get what are called maps. Each one of these will start with a map on it, and the first person to discover it gets a map, which may or may not be useful over the course of the game. Each player is going to choose one of several mechs. Each mech has a special power. For example, this mech can move 4 spaces. Most mechs can only move 1 to 3. You'll put your colored base on it. You'll also keep track of a couple things here on the side where you'll keep track of your power and your guile. And then you'll have a cube over here, and you'll have a place to tuck some cards as the game goes by. And in fact, they provide these really thin bases for the board that let you slide cards underneath them a little easily. Now, on a player's turn, and turns are going to be very quick in this game, the first turn, you're going to move your cube here, and then you can do a move, a play, and a gather action. After that, you'll move it to one of these spots and take the 2 actions you can see. So if I move it there, I'll take a move and a gather. Next turn, you always have to move it. I might go here and do a play and a gather. And then a move and a play, then another move and a gather, then a move and a play. At any point, I can pick a refresh action, and after the refresh action, which is a way to get cards back and pull different things, I will then move over here, take all 3 actions on my next turn, and then go back to taking 2 until I decide to refresh again. So let's talk about the actions. When it's a move action, first you'll start here, but after that you can move up to 3, or this one can move 4, on the board. And so you just simply move around. You can move through other mechs, but you cannot stay on the same spot as another mech. A gather action is simply just to gather what's on the board. So these actions here, this one says take the action of anything next to it. So right now, I can only do this one. These give you workers, so you'll simply take one of the different color workers in the game and get them. This lets you draw a card. When you draw a card, you can draw any of the 5 face-up cards. There's a big deck of cards. Every card is different, and cards are either quests, items, or meteorites. And so when you draw it, it is replaced. Now, they're in between these because sometimes some of the tiles will say draw the card next to it or take the action of a card next to it. This one here lets you draw 2 cards from the deck and keep 1. This one lets you draw a card and then recover a card. So that's gather, and there's all different actions. When you move onto a new spot, you get the map and you'll reveal that spot. And so a couple things will happen. First of all, you'll have a new action revealed. This one here, for example, lets you move up on the dial 2 on the guile track. You'll notice another one here. This lets you play an item card, but that's not going to be out. You'll notice there's a little 5+ on it. That's because you're going to be pulling from this bag, and there's guile and power tokens in here, these corruption tokens. You'll pull a token, and if it's equal to that number or higher, 5, that's the only number that we would put there. But if I had drawn this 3 first, I would put the 3 there and keep drawing until I go over 5. So those tokens are covering that action, and until you clear that, you're not going to be able to take that other alternate action on that tile. So we covered 2 of the actions, the move and gather. The other action is play. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to pick a faction, and you're going to take 2 cards of that faction. It's a character and a companion. And you might recognize these. You may have seen them from Scythe if you've played that game. These cards start in your hand, although in this game, hand just means to the left of your board. Whenever you play a card, you'll take it from the left and put it to the right. Going to refresh gives you those cards back. When you play a card, you will get whatever's in the top corner here. So this lets me move up 1 on this track here, on my power track. If I have some stars, this card becomes better. If I have 2 stars, I'll move up 2 in the power track and 1 in the guile track. There's also a spot for a worker on the bottom. So if you have that particularly color worker, when you play the card, you can place the worker, and you'll keep your workers here, place it here, and do whatever it says. So having workers is helpful because you can put them on your cards as you play them. As the game goes by, you're going to get more and more cards that you'll be able to play. But you'll need to refresh to bring them back to this side. When you refresh, any workers you played also will go here. As I said, there are 3 types of cards in the game. So there are different actions that can be taken. One action is quest. Everyone has this card on one of your this action on one of your 2 starting cards. When you quest, if you're in a certain location, this says location 7, which we've not yet found. Oh, there it is, location 7. If you're in this location and you pay 2 guile, you'll get a map token, and you'll be able to stick this card under completed quest, which is above your board. Items, there are actions. You saw an action right here that lets you play an item. When you play an item card, you'll be able to put this, tuck it under your board, and for the rest of the game, you have the special ability on the item. Also, at the end of the game, an item is going to be worth points that are shown down in the bottom right. And then finally, we have meteorites. When you get to do a meteorite, and that's an action shown right here on some of the tiles, you will get whatever it says on a meteorite. So this gives you $1, and dollars are points, per turquoise corruption. So every turquoise corruption that you've gotten, and when you play a meteorite, if you have already tucked meteorites under your board, you will get them also. Another reason you want to tuck meteorites under your board is because these cards, meteorite cards, get better if you have tucked meteorites, and if you have 2 tucked meteorites, the actions on them get better. As you tuck the different cards, and so meteorites get tucked underneath the bottom of your board, quests get placed above your board on the top, and item cards are going to be placed on the side of your board like this so you can see the actions. And you have 4 max that you can play on each side. You're not going to be able to use those cards anymore. They're no longer cards that can be played, but like I said, they'll help you out. Another thing you can do is you can fight the corruption tokens that are out on the board. So you simply just have to pay that much guile or power on these tokens, and you'll collect these tokens. They're all worth 2 points at the end of the game. There's even a 20-point token that's in the game. That gets put on location number 20, and you'll need to spend a combination of 10 guile and 10 power to get it, because that's the max you can have. Once these are removed, like I said, you can do the bottom action that's on them, and they can all be removed in one action. You just have to do them one after the other. A lot of what you're doing is to put stars out, and putting out a 4th star will trigger the game. When you accomplish different goals here, complete 4 quests, put out 4 meteorites, have 4 items, get the 20 corruption token, get 7 corruption tokens, have 8 cards, have 7 workers or 5 of those maps, and you take an action. There's an action on the board underneath one of the tiles to let you put out the star. So that's going to be worth points at the end of the game. The number of points is equal to the number of quests you fulfilled. If you've done no quests, each star is worth 5, while if you do 3 or more quests, each star is worth 10. So once that happens, there's a final round. There's some final scoring where items are worth points. Other cards might give you points. There's a few ways to get points, but a lot of your points are going to come from here and points that you've collected over the course of the game. Okay, first of all, I think we can say this is not Scythe, and your opinion of Scythe shouldn't affect your opinion on this at all, I don't think.
I don't think they have that much DNA in common. There's a little bit there, but no, there's definitely. I feel like lots of people who could like one and not the other.
For sure.
In either direction.
To the point to where I am lukewarm on Scythe. I'm fine on Scythe. I'm not that excited about it. So I wasn't that enamored about playing this. So, but the gameplay is totally different.
Yeah, the similarities are the theme.
Right.
The artwork is the same kind of artwork. It's that same universe. And
There
the
are
mechs. Right, which are just basically a piece you move around.
Yeah.
And there is the stars that you do to accomplish goals that are then multiplied by how high your hearts are, which is you completing missions. Almost to the point where that didn't make any sense. Like a quest gives me a heart, Like in the original game, the heart was happiness, which mattered a little bit more.
Right,
Yeah.
the populace. Yeah.
People really like when you pick them up at one place and drop them off at another.
That's true. Well, maybe. I don't know.
I want to ride a mech.
Yeah.
Mech Joyride's the board game.
Yeah, exactly.
But really what this game is it's an engine builder that has a giant board that you are using for sure, but you're kind of focused on building your engine. It's very similar to games like Race for the Galaxy or Arc.
It's like Glory to Rome to me is kind of what it mostly felt like, because it has there's that whole multi-use card. Tuck a card in on this side of your board, and you just look at this part, and it's a whatever. Tuck it underneath the board. Tuck it on this side of the board.
Sure, but each card can only be put into one of those spots.
Right,
it's not
only
like
one
this card can be tucked in any of those 3 spots.
Sure.
Right.
But it has that feeling of growing whatever's in front of you. It has that cadence of play a card, pass, and gather them up to the ready to go side. You know, it has that cadence to it and that sort of development arc that reminds me of those card games, which I love. I love that kind of card game. Some of my favorite games.
It feels to me like the entire game is just about action, like efficiency. You know,
Yeah.
It's very much about like figuring out the best way and fastest way to get there, do this thing, get this card. Okay, do I refresh now? Do I refresh later? Oh, I can squeeze one more action out of this. Now I refresh, and now I can combo these things back together.
Right.
That's a fun action selection where you cover one, you get the other 2, and I'll tell you what, those post-rest turns where you get to do everything,
Yes.
you just feel like you're accomplishing it all, you know?
I like that. It's
I do
like a
too.
small little thing.
Yeah.
But this idea of do nothing, then do all 3.
Right.
Then 2, switch the 2, switch the 2, so you want to rest again, and you're like, oh, I'm wasting a turn. And then I do all 3. That feels good. It's a nice, clean way to do that.
It does.
It works.
It's very much about paying attention to a little bit of where your opponents are in some aspects, of being like, are they going to get to that card before me? I really want to get there and grab that card before them, so maybe I won't rest now. Maybe I'll run over there and grab it first. You know, that sort of thing.
See, and that's interesting because there's no fighting in this game as far as Scythe, but there's blocking, which is almost as annoying for me than fighting, because you're like, you are heading over there, you're like, maybe I'll rest before I go, and then they're on that spot. They're like, come on, man. You know?
But that is usually unintentional.
It is.
So I like how speedy the game is. The actions are very, very quick. You know, the resting action, like you said, you get that great action after with all 3.
So
but
good.
also, I don't care. I'm like, I'm going to rest, and it's my turn already. Turns are that quick.
That's true.
There's the occasional slightly, I'm talking really slightly longer turn where someone plays a card that lets them take an extra action or something, but it's not that big of a deal. I do worry about the number of players. So you mentioned player interaction being, if you're on a spot that I'm not on, that is the only player interaction, right?
Yeah, and that's true.
Other than
Race into a card, that's about it.
or getting rid of the corruption or taking cards, okay, but that stuff is...
I agree with that.
in
If
lots
you
of
really
games.
want to get rid of corruption, just unveil more tiles. You'll be able to do it. You know?
Yeah.
But because of that, there's going to be, the game is going to play differently with fewer players than with more, to the point where I would not play this with, I have not played with 5, I have no desire to play with 5.
No.
The board doesn't change, there's nothing, and there's more spots to be blocked all the time. It would feel a little bit more constricting, and I don't know that I want that.
Yeah, I played at 2 mostly, and it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of interaction, just besides being like, oh, you're doing that, that's neat, I'm going to run over here. Okay, I need to get here and do this thing first. There wasn't too much interaction at all, but it just felt very much just like action economy, just figuring out how to focus and get to the right spot and do the thing faster than the other players.
And I do like the simple in-game triggers too. As far as you see those 4 stars, you see people slowly, you're getting closer, and you kind of know, although you can be thrown off too, how close you are to the end. Can I get this accomplished? Can I not? Or there's 3 stars out there, I've got 1, I've got to not finish this up. So I do like that. It gives a good pace to the game.
Yeah. I think there is a sweet spot when it comes to the player count. I agree with you on the 5. I think 2 is good, but the turns are so speedy.
Right.
And the board is a little loose at 2 that I think 3 might be the sweet spot for this.
Yeah.
Your turn's going to come around quick anyway because it is fast. And then, it's every now and then in a 2-player game, it's like, oh, Tom, you're in my way. That's where I was going to go. But it's pretty rare. You can normally do whatever you want to. It might be far, so you're like, walk and get there on the next turn. But with 3, you got a little more nastiness going on, whether it's coincidental or not. It just happens to somebody being away. I like that. I like a little bit more of that jockeying.
I could definitely see how that would happen in games, because there was points in the game where I'm like, the optimal move would be to block me right now. But they're too far away to block me, so I'm not going to be blocked. I guess I just do my thing, you know?
I don't know that I would ever move to a spot just to block someone, because
I mean, you can normally get benefits of yourself out of it, too, so.
Yeah, it's interesting that the special abilities are very simple.
Yep.
They're going to feel, I think the one of them lets you have 5 of each card, and that's cool as an end game thing.
Yeah.
But until you get 4, it's like you have no special ability.
That is weird.
Right.
It's a weird special ability. I don't know if I like it. I mean, you like it at the end. You're like, I got 5. But during the game, the guy who's like, I can move 4, and another person who...
The guy who has the ability to make it so that the corruption cost, like you get 1 free corruption for the first thing that you damage or whatever, like 1 free resource to be able to attack the locations, is ridiculously good.
Yeah, but I also like the guy who can spend maps, partially because... Maps are kind of worthless.
You get them to do nothing, kind of like that,
yeah, that's really good too.
There's a few cards that let you use them and stuff, but maps are probably the weakest part of the game. They're an end goal, and there's a few cards that use them, but if you have the guy who uses maps, then they're amazing.
I do have a couple of issues with the production itself. You already mentioned the box size, and that seems crazy. It did not need to be this big. You're going to get the shelf presence without going this big, you know?
Right.
But then also the tokens that track your 2 little resources don't fit on that stinking little track. They bump into each other. It's just like, your math is just a little off. The tokens are too big or the board is a little small. And then I thought a couple of the icons, which is a small percentage, to be fair, I thought a couple of the icons were a little confusing to me specifically. I was like, what's that one? That logo, that symbol doesn't make sense to me, that iconography. But the main thing was those wooden tokens. It just...
I have a big problem with that. That's a big problem. It's not, because you're moving them up and down so often.
A lot, yeah.
I also thought the terminology is a little weird. You know, like your hand is not really your hand. It's cards on the left side of your board.
That's hard to get used to,
it's not a big deal. No, like the discard pile is called something weird. Right. You know, there's that sort of thing. But, unless I sound negative, the speed, any game has quick, snappy turns.
I like that a lot.
I love it.
And it's a great setting. Again, it's Scythe, yes, but it's like Scythe post things fell from the sky and you have to go and find these alien things that have crash landed. It's such a cool setting. I love that that's what's happening in this world right now. I love it. I love that vibe.
I agree.
It's a little more supernatural.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. And I like how it's got an elegance and a quickness to it, but also there's a lot going on where you're building your tableau, but then also that 20-point tile. Like, who's going to find it? You know, and it's pretty fun to watch. Ah, man, he got it. You know, that one thing just adds it's pretty much instant star if you get that. So it's like, really, if
you're built up to it.
Yeah, if you're built up to it, you can't
have
get
to earn that.
You do. You do. But you got to find it. So, and everyone's ready, but they can't find it. I like that. There's a lot going on to it.
What would you give it?
For me, I would give it a 7.5. I enjoyed the game, but there's not a whole lot of interaction. I enjoy games that have a lot of interaction. For some reason, this one, I don't know. For me, I like playing it. I thought it was fun. I loved running around the map. I loved doing all the card actions and economy. But overall, it's not one that's going to be the very top of my list. But I definitely enjoyed the game. I definitely enjoyed how it came together. And maybe with some more plays, playing it at higher player counts, there might be more of that interaction that I was looking for. So, but yeah, good stuff overall.
All right.
Actually, coming higher, I give this a 9. I enjoy this game a lot. Because, and aside, I was not crazy about. This is kind of what I wanted. I do agree there should be more player interaction. Otherwise, I'd have it higher than that. But I love the game. But for me, in the games I've played, the blocking does come into play several times because you're like, I had to pivot my strategy several times because that's blocked. So I know it's not direct player interaction or intentional, which I'm pretty sure it was a couple times. But what on earth? But I do like how fast it is. And there's something about how those in-game triggers out there. You can see the cadence of the game coming depending on who you're playing with. And I really enjoy it. You know, I enjoy this a lot, especially because I went in not expecting to enjoy it because the Scythe name for me isn't that high. But this I really enjoyed. I think it flows fast, it's quick, and I really enjoy it. So it's a 9 for me.
I'm coming in just below that, 8.5 for me. I really like it. This is my kind of jam. I love cards with powers. It's my thing.
Yeah.
It's, you know, the board is, the first time you see this board laid out, you're like, these tiles need to be this big. Is this, like, it's such a table hog. And again, it's that feeling of, are you just flexing? Is this bog this big because you're flexing? Are these tiles this big just because you're flexing? That seems weird to me. It could have been a little smaller, a little, you know, I don't know. I think it would have felt a little easier to get into if it had been not as bombastic. But I love the theme. I love the play. I really like the artwork. This artwork still is fantastic. And, yeah, quick, snappy turns, like you said. That never gets old. So 8.5.
And that's where I'm at, too, at 8.5. I really enjoy it. Yeah, the production, minor issues there, but... and the mechs, though, are amazing.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They
really
outdid
good
themselves
models.
with the
Really
mechs.
nice.
They're fantastic.
You know, he like put a note like, hey, can someone figure out how to use these inside? Let us know. And I'm thinking, I could also use these inside. It seems cool. But to wrap it around, your liking aside, I don't think we'll have any bearing on this.
It won't.
I actually don't know that I could compare the two other than, you know, if I'm ranking them on a list. But if someone said you want to play Scythe or Expeditions, I think so different.
Right.
They're like very different games.
They're
Scythe
really
is a
different.
bigger game for sure.
Yeah.
It's longer. There's a lot going on. Expeditions, this is the kind of game I put with Race for the Galaxy and Dominion, that kind of game.
I agree.
I
The
agree with
difference
that.
here, though, is
Yep.
it's just a big table spread.
Right.
But I do like those games.
It matters for the player count for me, too. If you're asking me which of those two games I want to play, then my question is how many people are playing.
Yeah, you know what? If we had
The
5,
three?
I think I'd pick Scythe.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 3, 2, I'll play this in a heartbeat. If
Right.
we go above that, big, yeah, I don't want to play this with 5. It doesn't feel like, it feels like you can hear the bones creaking underneath this at 5.
Gotcha.
Also, Combolicious Meteorites.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, meteorites.
yeah.
That was the
So
original
good.
title, actually.
Combolicious Meteorites?
But they changed it.
Anyway, there you go. That's Expeditions. I'm Tom Vessel.
I'm Roy Caddy.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Z Garcia.
We're going to get into our mechs now.